The wheelchair squeaked against the hardwood floor as I rolled myself to the kitchen window. Outside, snow blanketed our once pristine suburban street in Millbrook, New York, turning everything into a postcard-perfect lie, just like my marriage. "Elliot, honey, do you need anything?" Rachel's voice dripped with fake concern as she entered the kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile. She wore her best black dress, the one she'd bought for my funeral that never happened. I let drool slide down my chin and stared blankly at the snow-covered oak tree where I'd proposed to her 8 years ago. Inside my head, I was cataloging every micro-expression on her face, every tell that revealed her impatience with my continued existence. IOT, thirsty, I managed to slur, playing the brain-damaged husband to perfection. Rachel sighed and filled a sippy cup with water, a sippy cup, for a 38-year-old former firefighter who used to carry 200-pound men down burning staircases. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Here you go, sweetie." She handed me the cup, her wedding ring catching the morning light, the same ring she'd taken off every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months when she visited Sean at his auto shop. I took a sip and let some water dribble down my shirt. Rachel grimaced and grabbed a towel, wiping my face with barely concealed disgust. "Sean's coming over later to help with your physical therapy," she said, checking her phone. "He's so good with you." Good with me. Right. Sean McClellan, my former best friend, former best man, former human being. The same Sean who'd cut my brake lines on Route 9A and watched my Ford Explorer tumble 200 feet into Croton Gorge. The same Sean who'd popped champagne with my wife while paramedics pulled my broken body from the wreckage. The same Sean who had no idea I remembered every goddamn second of it. "Sean, nice," I mumbled, letting my head loll to one side. Rachel's phone buzzed. A text from her lover, no doubt. She'd grown careless over the past 2 years, assuming her vegetable husband couldn't read or comprehend anything beyond basic needs. "I need to run some errands," she said, already grabbing her purse. "Mrs. Patterson next door will check on you in an hour." She kissed the top of my head, a gesture so mechanical it might as well have been programmed, and headed for the door. I waited until I heard her BMW start before reaching into the hidden compartment I'd built into my wheelchair cushion. The digital recorder was still running. 23 hours and 14 minutes of audio from the past week alone. I had 418 hours total, all backed up to multiple cloud accounts Rachel didn't know existed. I pressed stop and labeled the file Rachel_Tuesday_meeting_Sean_auto_shop_discussing_pillow_method. Yes, the pillow method. That's what they called their plan to suffocate me in my sleep. Sean's brilliant idea, naturally. Rachel preferred poison, something untraceable that would look like a stroke or heart attack. But Sean worried about autopsies, toxicology reports, insurance investigations. They'd settled on suffocation. Quick, quiet, and easily explained as sleep apnea or a seizure. Dr. Martinez had already documented my declining respiratory function in my medical files, notes that Rachel had dictated during my appointments. I rolled to the living room window and watched Rachel's car disappear around the corner. Then I stood up, stretched my back, and walked to the kitchen to make real coffee. Not the decaf swill Rachel served me, but the dark roast I'd hidden behind the cleaning supplies. My name is Elliot Masters. I'm a former firefighter, current insurance fraud investigator, and full-time ghost in my own life. 2 years ago, my wife and best friend tried to homicide me for $4.2 million in life insurance. They failed. I survived. And for 24 months, I've been playing dead while documenting every detail of their conspiracy. Today, that changes. 2 years earlier. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Rachel's voice, breathless and panicked. "Elliot, thank God. I need you to come pick me up. My car broke down on Route 9A near the Overlook. I'm scared to wait here alone." I should have known. Rachel wasn't scared of anything. She'd once chased a purse snatcher 3 blocks in heels and tackled him outside a Starbucks. But love makes you stupid, and I was deeply, profoundly stupid when it came to my wife. "Stay in the car, lock the doors," I told her, already grabbing my keys. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Route 9A was a winding mountain road that hugged the edge of Croton Gorge. During the day, it offered spectacular views of the Hudson Valley. At night, it was a black ribbon of asphalt bordered by guardrails and a 200-foot drop into nothing. I'd driven that road 1,000 times. I knew every curve, every pothole, every place where deer might bolt across the pavement. What I didn't know was that someone had crawled under my Explorer earlier that evening and cut my brake lines with surgical precision. The first sign of trouble came on the third hairpin turn. I pressed the brake pedal and felt it sink to the floor with no resistance. The Explorer continued accelerating down the steep grade, picking up speed with each passing second. 30 miles per hour, 40, 50. I pumped the brakes frantically, knowing it was useless. Grabbed the emergency brake and pulled hard. The cable snapped, also cut. I downshifted into second gear, then first, but the engine couldn't overcome gravity and momentum. 60 miles per hour on a road designed for 25. The next curve was coming fast, too fast. I had three choices: hit the trees on the left, hit the rock wall on the right, or punch through the guardrail and take my chances with the gorge. I chose the gorge. The Explorer hit the guardrail at 68 miles per hour and launched into space like a missile. For a brief weightless moment, I could see the lights of Millbrook spread out below me like fallen stars. Then, gravity reasserted itself, and the world became a kaleidoscope of tumbling metal, shattering glass, and my own voice screaming words I couldn't hear over the roar of destruction. The Explorer hit the rocky slope and rolled. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. Each impact drove shards of pain through my body like lightning bolts. My seatbelt held, but the steering wheel crushed my chest. The dashboard shattered my left arm, and something, maybe the rear-view mirror, opened a gash across my forehead that painted my vision red. On the 5th roll, the Explorer slammed into a massive oak tree and stopped. Silence. Then, faintly, I heard voices from the road above. "Holy crap, Rachel. You think he's dead?" Sean's voice. My best friend Sean, who should have been home with his wife, standing on Route 9A at midnight, watching my car burn in the gorge below. "He has to be." Rachel's voice, calm and clinical. "Nobody survives that. What if he doesn't? What if he's just hurt? Then we wait. He'll bleed out or freeze before morning. Either way, problem solved." I tried to move, to call out, to do something that would prove I was still alive. But my body wouldn't respond. Blood filled my mouth and darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. The last thing I heard, before losing consciousness, was the sound of a champagne cork popping. I woke up 3 weeks later in Westchester Medical Center, with a tube down my throat and my head wrapped like a mummy. The first face I saw was Rachel's, streaked with tears that might have been real if I didn't know better. "Oh my God, Elliot, you're awake. I thought the doctor said—" She grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight. "I love you so much. I was so scared I'd lost you." Behind her, a doctor in green scrubs checked my chart. Dr. Patel, according to his name tag. Kind eyes, concerned expression. "Mr. Masters, I'm Dr. Patel, your neurologist. You've been in a medically induced coma for 21 days following a severe traumatic brain injury. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I tried to speak, but the breathing tube made it impossible. I nodded instead, and immediately regretted it as pain exploded through my skull. "Good, that's very good. We're going to remove the breathing tube now, but I need you to stay calm. This might be uncomfortable." Uncomfortable was an understatement. It felt like they were pulling my lungs out through my throat. But when it was over, I could breathe on my own again. "Can you tell me your name?" Dr. Patel asked. Elliot Masters." My voice was barely a whisper. "Excellent. Do you know what year it is? 2021? And do you remember what happened to you?" This was the moment, the crossroads where I had to choose between truth and survival. I looked at Rachel, saw the microscopic tension around her eyes, the way her fingers gripped my hand just a little too tight. "Car accident?" I said slowly, as if the words were difficult to form. "That's right. You went off the road on Route 9A. Do you remember anything else about that night?" I let my face go blank, stared at the ceiling for a long moment, then shook my head. "No, nothing." Rachel's grip relaxed. "Doctor." Patel made notes on his clipboard. "That's not unusual with this type of injury. The memories may return in time, or they may not. Right now, I'm more concerned with your cognitive function. Can you tell me your wife's name?" I looked at Rachel, let confusion cloud my features. She looks familiar, but "I'm Rachel," she said quickly, leaning closer. "I'm your wife. We've been married for 6 years. 8 years, but I didn't correct her. Rachel." I repeated as if testing the word. "Yes, Rachel. Dr. Patel spent the next hour running cognitive tests. Simple math problems, pattern recognition, memory exercises. I failed them all deliberately, making just enough effort to avoid suspicion but not enough to reveal my true mental state. The truth was, my mind was sharper than ever. The accident had given me something I'd never had before: absolute clarity about who my wife really was. And now I had a choice to make. I could expose her immediately. Tell Dr. Patel that I remembered everything, that Rachel and Sean had tried to homicide me. But then what? A trial where it would be my word against theirs? A he said, she said battle with no physical evidence? Or I could play dead, become a ghost in my own life. Let them think they'd won while I gathered evidence that would bury them both. Chose to become a ghost. 6 weeks later, Rachel brought me home to a house that had been transformed into a medical facility. Hospital bed in the living room, wheelchair ramps, grab bars in the bathroom. All paid for by the same insurance company that would soon be cutting Rachel a $4.2 million check for my end. The irony was delicious. I know it's different, Rachel said, helping me from the wheelchair to the hospital bed. But I want to take care of you myself. You're my husband, and I love you. Love. The word tasted like poison in the air between us. I let her arrange my pillows, adjust my blankets, set up the bedside table with water and medications. Dr. Martinez, my new primary care physician, had prescribed a cocktail of pills for pain, seizures, and cognitive function. Rachel would be administering them, of course, controlling every aspect of my medical care. The visiting nurse will come 3 times a week, she explained, reading from a care plan. And we have physical therapy scheduled for Tuesdays and Thursdays. Physical therapy with Sean. Sean volunteered to help, Rachel continued. He feels so terrible about what happened. He blames himself for not being there that night. If only she knew how right she was. That first week home was an education in the depths of human cruelty. Rachel played the devoted wife perfectly when others were around. The visiting nurse, Mrs. Patterson from next door, my former colleagues from the fire department who stopped by to check on me. But when we were alone, the mask slipped. She'd leave me in my own filth for hours before changing my adult diapers. Forget to give me meals, then claim I'd already eaten when I complained of hunger. Increase my pain medication until I was barely conscious. Then tell visitors I was having a bad day. And through it all, I recorded everything. The digital recorder was a gift from my brother Mike, disguised as a medical alert device. In case you need help when Rachel's not home, he'd said, not knowing how prophetic those words were. I wore it around my neck like a pendant, and it captured every conversation, every cruel comment, every moment when Rachel revealed her true nature. God, you smell, she said one afternoon, wrinkling her nose as she changed my bedding. I can't wait until this is over. Over? I mumbled, plain confused. Until you're better, honey, until you're back to your old self. But we both knew that would never happen. According to Dr. Martinez's reports that Rachel helped write, my condition was deteriorating. Cognitive decline, respiratory issues, increased seizure activity, all fictional, but well documented. The visiting nurse, Mrs. Chen, was the first to suspect something was wrong. His vitals are strong, she told Rachel during one of her visits. Blood pressure normal, heart rate steady. For someone with his supposed level of brain damage, he's remarkably healthy. The doctors say that's common, Rachel replied smoothly. The body can continue functioning even when the mind is gone. Mrs. Chen nodded, but I caught her studying me when Rachel wasn't looking. During her next visit, she asked Rachel to leave the room while she examined me. Mr. Masters, she whispered, checking my pupils with a penlight. If you can understand me, blink twice. I blinked once, then stared blankly at the ceiling. She tried several more tests, but I maintained my performance. I couldn't risk exposing myself, not yet. I needed more evidence, more time. But Mrs. Chen planted a seed of doubt that would eventually grow into something much larger. Sean McClellan arrived for my first physical therapy session wearing a Yankees cap and a guilty expression that would have been comical if he wasn't trying to eliminate me. Hey, buddy, he said, his voice artificially cheerful. Ready to get you moving again? I stared at him with vacant eyes, letting drool pool at the corner of my mouth. Inside, I was cataloging every detail of his appearance. The scratches on his hands from crawling under my car, the nervous tick in his left eye, the way he couldn't quite meet my gaze. "He's having a good day today," Rachel said, kissing Sean's cheek in greeting. A quick, intimate gesture that confirmed what I already knew. Their affair had continued throughout my recovery. Sean set up a portable exercise mat and began moving my legs through basic range of motion exercises. His touch was gentle, professional, which made his betrayal even more obscene. "Remember when we used to play basketball at the Y?" he said, bending my knee toward my chest. "You had that butcher crossover, broke my ankle that one time." I remembered. I also remembered Sean crying in my hospital room when his wife had pregnancy failure. Remembered lending him money when his auto shop was failing. Remembered standing up at his wedding and promising to always have his back. "Basketball?" I repeated slowly, as if the word was foreign. "That's right, Elliot. We were teammates, best friends. Best friends don't cut brake lines." The session lasted an hour, with Sean maintaining a steady stream of one-sided conversation about our shared past. Rachel watched from the kitchen, occasionally offering encouragement or adjusting my position. After Sean left, I heard them talking in the driveway. "How long do we have to keep this up?" Sean's voice frustrated. "As long as it takes. The insurance investigation is still ongoing. We can't do anything suspicious until the money comes through. And then we finish what we started." I adjusted my recording device and made sure to capture every word. Their Tuesday and Thursday routine continued for months. Sean would arrive at 2 p.m., put me through physical therapy exercises, then stay for dinner. They'd make love in the guest bedroom while I lay in the living room, supposedly unconscious from my evening medications. But I was wide awake, recording their conversations through the baby monitor Rachel had installed to keep an eye on me. "I dream about him dying," Rachel said one Thursday night, her voice muffled by pillows. "Is that terrible?" "We all have dark thoughts," Sean replied. "Doesn't make you a bad person. Sometimes I think about just not giving him his medications. Let him have a seizure. It would look natural." "Too risky. What if there's an autopsy?" "Then what? We can't wait forever. People are starting to ask questions." "What kind of questions?" "Mrs. Chen thinks he's more aware than we're letting on, and Dr. Patel wants to do another cognitive assessment." There was a long pause. "Maybe it's time for the pillow," Sean said finally. My blood turned to ice. "You think?" "Make it look like sleep apnea. Happens all the time with brain injury patients. No one would question it." "When?" "Soon. This weekend, maybe. When Mrs. Patterson goes to visit her sister." I had 3 days to live. Dr. Rajesh Patel had kind eyes and the suspicious mind of someone who'd seen too many medical mysteries in his 30-year career. During my monthly neurological assessments, he'd begun asking questions that went beyond standard cognitive testing. "Mrs. Masters," he said during my November appointment, "I'd like to speak with your husband privately for a few minutes." Rachel's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, doctor. I'll be right outside." After she left, Dr. Patel closed the door and pulled his chair closer to my wheelchair. "Elliot, I'm going to be direct with you. Your test results don't match your supposed level of cognitive impairment. Your reflexes are normal, your eye tracking is perfect, and yesterday I saw you move your left hand to scratch your nose, a complex motor function that should be impossible given your diagnosis." I stared at him blankly, but he continued, "I've been practicing neurology for 3 decades. I know the difference between brain damage and performance. If you can understand me, I need you to give me a sign." This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and hoping for. I looked toward the door, making sure Rachel wasn't listening, then met Dr. Patel's eyes directly. "Help me," I whispered. His face showed no surprise, only grim confirmation of his suspicions. "How long have you been aware?" "Since I woke up. I remember everything. The accident wasn't an accident. My wife and Sean McClellan cut my brake lines. They're planning to eliminate me this weekend." Dr. Patel's expression hardened. "Do you have proof?" I told him about the recordings, the hidden evidence, the insurance fraud. He listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "Why haven't you gone to the police?" "Because it's my word against theirs. I need more evidence, concrete proof of their intentions." "And you're willing to risk your life for it?" "I'm already dead to them. This is my only chance to come back to life." Dr. Patel was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Keep documenting my declining condition. Make it look like I'm getting worse, not better. and be ready to testify when the time comes. When will that be? Soon, very soon. He stood and opened the door. Rachel immediately appeared, her face bright with fake concern. How is he, doctor? I'm afraid there's been some deterioration since last month, Dr. Patel said smoothly. His cognitive responses are slower, and I'm seeing signs of increased seizure activity. You might want to consider adjusting his medications. Rachel's eyes lit up. What kind of adjustments? I'll send the recommendations to Dr. Martinez. In the meantime, keep a close eye on him. Patients at this stage can decline rapidly. Perfect. Dr. Patel had just given Rachel medical justification for my impending passing. As we left his office, I caught my reflection in the elevator mirror. Thin, pale, broken-looking. The perfect sufferer. But inside, I was planning my resurrection. Friday night arrived with a light snow that turned our suburban street into a Christmas card. Mrs. Patterson had left that morning to visit her sister in Albany, just as Rachel had predicted. The house felt different without our nosy neighbor's watchful presence, more isolated, more dangerous. Rachel made my favorite dinner, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the same meal she'd cooked for our first anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I thought you might enjoy something special tonight, she said, cutting my meat into small pieces like I was a child. You've been working so hard in physical therapy. Sean arrived at 7 carrying a bottle of wine and wearing the same nervous expression he'd worn since the accident. How's our patient tonight? He asked, avoiding my eyes. Peaceful, Rachel replied. Dr. Patel says he's entering the final stages. It won't be much longer. They ate dinner while I sat in my wheelchair, supposedly dozing from my evening medications. In reality, I was wide awake, recording their conversation through the device hidden in my shirt pocket. You sure about this? Sean asked quietly. We've waited 2 years. The insurance money came through last week. It's time. What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong. He's barely conscious most of the time now. And even if he wasn't, who would believe him? He's been declared mentally incompetent. After dinner, they moved to the living room to watch television. Some romantic comedy that Rachel had loved when we were dating. She sat on Sean's lap, running her fingers through his hair while I pretended to sleep in my wheelchair 10 feet away. At 11 o'clock, Rachel announced she was going to bed. Help me get him settled first, she told Sean. They transferred me from the wheelchair to the hospital bed with practiced efficiency. Rachel checked my pulse, adjusted my pillows, and made sure my breathing seemed normal. His respiratory rate is already slowing, she told Sean. The new medications are working. What new medications? I'd been palming my pills for weeks, spitting them out when no one was looking. But Rachel didn't know that. Sweet dreams, honey, she whispered, kissing my forehead. Then she turned off the lights and went upstairs with Sean. I lay in the darkness, listening to their footsteps overhead, the creaking of bed springs, the murmur of voices discussing my homicide. My phone was hidden under my pillow, recording everything. At 2:17 a.m., I heard them coming back downstairs. You sure he's out? Sean whispered. Look at him. He's barely breathing. I had slowed my breathing to almost nothing, a technique I'd learned during firefighter training for dealing with smoke inhalation. To an observer, I would appear unconscious, possibly dying. Sean approached the bed carrying a pillow from the guest room. His hands were shaking. I can't do this, Rachel. This is homicide. It's mercy. Look at him. He's already gone. We're just ending his suffering. What if he wakes up? He won't. And even if he does, he can't fight back. Just hold it over his face for 3 minutes. That's all. Sean stood over me, pillow in hand, paralyzed by conscience and fear. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. The moment when they would reveal their true intentions beyond any doubt. Do it, Rachel hissed. Do it now. Sean raised the pillow above my face, and I opened my eyes. Hello, Sean. My voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Sean stumbled backward, dropping the pillow, his face white with shock. How are you? Awake? Aware? Alive? I sat up in bed, my movements smooth and controlled. Surprise! Rachel appeared at Sean's shoulder, her mouth open in disbelief. That's impossible. You're brain damaged. You can't even remember your own name. Elliot James Masters, I said clearly. Born March 15, 1983. Married Rachel Louise Chen on June 12, 2015. Former firefighter. Current insurance investigator. and full-time sufferer of attempted homicide. I reached under my pillow and pulled out my phone, which had been recording for the past 3 hours. Oh, and I have everything. Every conversation, every plan, every moment of your 2-year conspiracy to eliminate me. Sean made a move toward the door, but I was already standing, blocking his path. 2 years of secret exercise had kept me in better shape than they realized. Sit down, Sean. We need to talk. This is crazy, Rachel said, but her voice lacked conviction. You're sick. You're confused. Am I? Let me refresh your memory. I pressed play on my phone. Their voices filled the room. Just hold it over his face for 3 minutes. That's all. Do it. Do it now. Rachel's face went ashen. Sean collapsed into the chair beside my bed, his head in his hands. 2 years, I continued. 2 years of playing dead while you plan my funeral. Do you know what that's like? Listening to your wife discuss the best way to homicide you? Pretending to be brain damaged while your best friend cuts your brake lines? We never meant for it to go this far, Sean said weakly. Really? Then what did you mean when you cut my brake lines on Route 9A? What did you mean when you watched my car roll into the gorge? What did you mean when you popped champagne while I was bleeding out? Sean looked up sharply. You remember that? I remember everything, every detail, every word, every betrayal. I walked to the window and looked out at the snow-covered street where I'd once felt safe and happy. The question now is, what am I going to do about it? Rachel found her voice. Elliot, please, let us explain. Explain what? How you seduced my best friend? How you forged medical records? How you collected $4.2 million in insurance money while planning to suffocate me with a pillow? We never touched the insurance money, she said desperately. Because you were waiting for me to die first. Can't spend a life insurance payout while the insured is still breathing. I turned back to face them, and they both flinched at whatever they saw in my expression. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to confess. All of it. On camera. And then you're going to turn yourselves into the police. Or what? Rachel asked. Or I release these recordings to the media, the insurance company, the police, and your families. Your choice. Sean stood up slowly. You're bluffing. If you had real evidence, you would have gone to the cops already. Would I? With what proof? My word against yours? A brain-damaged man's testimony against his devoted wife and caring friend? I smiled coldly. No, Sean, I needed you to try again. I needed you to incriminate yourselves beyond any doubt. And tonight you did exactly that. I held up my phone again. Attempted homicide, caught on tape, game over. What followed was the most satisfying 3 hours of my life. I set up my laptop and activated the camera, positioning it so both Rachel and Sean were clearly visible. Then I made them tell the whole story, from beginning to end, while I recorded every word. Rachel went first, her voice flat and emotionless as she described the planning phase. It started as a fantasy, she said, staring at her hands. Elliot was working long hours, we were fighting about money, and I felt trapped. I'd started having an affair with Sean, and we would joke about what it would be like if Elliot just disappeared. When did it stop being a joke? When we found out about the life insurance policy. $4.2 million, more money than we'd ever see otherwise. Sean picked up the narrative, describing how they'd researched the best way to stage an accident. We considered a house fire, but Elliot would know how to escape. Poisoning seemed too risky, too many tests, too many questions. But a car accident on Route 9A, that road eliminates someone every year. It would look completely natural. So you cut my brake lines. I'm a mechanic. I knew exactly where to cut, how much to cut. It was supposed to look like metal fatigue, normal wear and tear. And you, Rachel? What was your role? I was supposed to be stranded on the overlook. When your car went off the road, I would call 911, play the hysterical wife. No one would suspect anything. Except I survived. Rachel's composure finally cracked. You weren't supposed to survive. No one survives that kind of crash. But there you were, broken and bleeding, and I had to play the grieving wife while secretly hoping you would die in the hospital. And when I didn't die, we adapted. The doctor said you had severe brain damage that you might never recover. So we decided to wait, take care of you until the insurance money came through, then finish the job. Yes, I made them describe every detail. The forged medical records, the manipulated medications, the plan to suffocate me and claim it was sleep apnea. By the time they finished, I had a complete confession that would stand up in any court. There, Rachel said finally. You have what you want? Now what? Now you're going to pack a bag and drive to the police station. You're going to walk in and confess everything. And if we don't, I held up a flash drive. This recording goes to Detective Morrison at the state police, along with every piece of evidence I've collected over the past 2 years. Your choice, voluntary surrender or public arrest. Sean stood up abruptly. I'm not going to prison for this. It was her idea. She seduced me, manipulated me. Sit down, Sean. No, I'm leaving. You can't stop me. He headed for the door, but I was ready for him. 2 years of secret physical training had prepared me for this moment. I caught him in the hallway and drove my shoulder into his midsection, sending him crashing into the wall. I said, sit down. Sean swung at me wildly, but I ducked and landed a solid punch to his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping for air. I spent 2 years listening to you plan my homicide, I said, grabbing him by the collar. 2 years watching you touch my wife, eat my food, pretend to be my friend. Did you really think I wouldn't be ready for this? I dragged him back to the living room and shoved him into the chair. Both of you are going to the police, tonight, together, and you're going to confess everything exactly as you did on this recording. Rachel was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Please, Elliot, I know you hate me, but we were married. That has to mean something. It did mean something. It meant I trusted you with my life, and you tried to take it. I walked to the kitchen and returned with 2 suitcases I'd packed earlier. Your clothes, your essentials, everything else stays here. This house, the cars, the bank accounts, all of it was paid for with blood money. You can't just throw us out, Sean protested. Watch me. I opened the front door, letting the cold night air sweep into the room. You have 2 choices. Walk out that door and drive to the police station, or I'll call them and have you arrested for attempted homicide. Either way, your freedom ends tonight. They looked at each other, then at me, then at the suitcases. Finally, Rachel stood and picked up her bag. I'm sorry, Elliot. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. Sean grabbed his suitcase and followed Rachel to the door. At the threshold, he turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I watched from the window as they loaded their bags into Sean's truck and drove away into the snowy night. Then I called Detective Morrison and told him to expect visitors. The trial began 6 months later in the Westchester County Courthouse, an imposing stone building that had seen its share of dramatic cases. But nothing quite like this. The prosecution had everything: recorded confessions, physical evidence, medical records showing the systematic manipulation of my treatment. Rachel and Sean had tried to recant their confessions, claiming I'd coerced them, but the recordings spoke for themselves. I testified for 2 full days, walking the jury through every detail of my ordeal. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious locals, and former colleagues from the fire department. Mrs. Patterson sat in the front row, shaking her head in disbelief. Masters, the prosecutor asked, can you describe your emotional state during the 2 years you pretended to be brain damaged? Rage, I said simply. Pure, focused rage. Every day I had to watch the people I loved most in the world plan my passing. I had to let them feed me, bathe me, treat me like a child, all while knowing they were counting the days until my funeral. Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? Because I needed proof. Without evidence, it would have been my word against theirs. A brain-damaged man's testimony against his devoted wife and caring friend. Who would you believe? The defense tried to paint me as a manipulative sociopath who had orchestrated the entire scenario. Rachel's lawyer argued that I had driven my wife to desperation through emotional misuse and neglect. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he said during closing arguments, my client was trapped in a loveless marriage with a controlling, violent man. Yes, she made mistakes. Yes, she acted out of desperation. But this was not cold-blooded homicide. This was self-defense. The jury wasn't buying it. They deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Attempted homicide in the first degree, conspiracy, insurance fraud, elder misuse. Rachel got 25 years. Sean got 30 as the bailiffs led them away in handcuffs. Rachel looked back at me one last time. Her face showed no remorse, only hatred. I should have used poison, she mouthed silently. I smiled and mouthed back. You should have made sure I was dead. The media called it the ghost husband case, and it made national headlines. 60 Minutes did a feature. Netflix bought the rights. I turned down every interview request and used the money from the documentary deal to start a foundation for brain injury survivors. Dr. Patel testified at the trial about the elaborate deception we'd maintained. In 30 years of practice, I've never seen anything like it, he told the court. Mr. Master's performance was so convincing that even I began to doubt my own suspicions. Mrs. Chen, the visiting nurse, also took the stand. I knew something was wrong, she testified. His vitals were too strong, his responses too quick. But Mrs. Masters was so convincing, so devoted, I thought maybe I was imagining things. The insurance company tried to recover the money they'd paid out, but their lawyers couldn't find any legal grounds. Technically, they'd paid a legitimate claim. Rachel was my legal beneficiary, and I had been severely injured. The fact that she'd caused the injuries was a criminal matter, not a civil one. I kept the money, all of it, and I used it exactly as Rachel and Sean had planned, to start a new life. I bought a small house in Vermont, far from the memories and ghosts of Millbrook. Learned to sail, started writing a book about my experience. Dated a little, though trust didn't come easily anymore. The physical scars healed. The emotional ones were taking longer. But I was alive. I was free. And every morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw not a sufferer, but a survivor. A man who had literally come back from the dead to reclaim his life. 2 years after the trial, I received a letter forwarded from my old address in Millbrook. No return address. Postmarked from the Women's Correctional Facility in Bedford Hills. Elliot, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know something. The affair with Sean started long before we planned the accident. I was going to ask for a divorce, but then I found out about the life insurance policy. $4.2 million. More money than I'd ever see in a lifetime of working. I convinced myself you were a bad husband, that you didn't appreciate me, that I deserved better. It was easier than admitting I was just greedy. Sean was weak, but I was the mastermind. I seduced him, manipulated him, convinced him that eliminating you was the only way we could be together. He never would have done it without me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that every night for the past 4 years, I've dreamed about that moment when you opened your eyes. The look on your face, the sound of your voice. You were supposed to be broken. Instead, you broke us. I hope you're happy. I really do. You won. Rachel. I read the letter twice, then walked to the fireplace and dropped it into the flames. Watched the paper curl and blacken and disappear. She was right about one thing. I had won. But victory had come at a cost I was still calculating. That night, I had the dream again. The same dream I'd been having for 4 years. I was back in the Explorer, rolling down into Croton Gorge, but this time I could see Rachel and Sean on the overlook above. They weren't watching in horror, they were cheering. I woke up in a cold sweat as always, but this time something was different. This time I wasn't afraid. I got up and walked to the bathroom mirror, looked at my reflection in the dim light. The man staring back at me was older, harder, marked by experience in ways that couldn't be hidden. But he was alive, he was free. And he had learned something valuable about the nature of justice. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is simply surviving. I married again. Her name is Sarah, and she's a trauma counselor who understands about scars, both visible and hidden. We met at a conference for brain injury survivors, where I was speaking about my experience. She knew my story before she knew me, which made things easier. No secrets, no lies, no hidden agendas. Just two people who had been broken by life and were trying to put themselves back together. We live quietly now. I still get recognized occasionally. The ghost husband case became part of true crime folklore, but mostly we're left alone. I write books about survival and resilience. Sarah helps other trauma sufferers find their way back to the light. Sometimes late at night, she asks me if I regret it. The 2 years of pretending, the elaborate deception, the choice to become a ghost in my own life. Do you wish you'd just called the police that first day? She asked recently. I thought about it for a long time before answering. No, I said finally, because then I would have been a sufferer. This way, I was something else. What? Dangerous? She laughed, thinking I was joking. But I wasn't, not entirely. The truth is, those 2 years changed me in ways I'm still discovering. They taught me that people are capable of unspeakable cruelty, even people you love and trust. but they also taught me that I'm capable of unspeakable strength. I survived an attempted homicide. I outwitted two butchers. I came back from the dead to reclaim my life. And if I could do that once, I could do it again. Not that I'm planning to. Sarah and I are happy together. We have a good life, a peaceful life. But there's something comforting about knowing that if the worst happens again, I'm ready for it. I'm no longer the naive firefighter who trusted his wife and best friend with his life. I'm something harder now, something that learned to live in the shadows and strike from the darkness. I'm a ghost who learned how to haunt the living. And that's a power I'll never give up again. Last month, I got a call from Dr. Patel. Sean had died in prison. A heart attack. Sudden and unexpected. He was only 42. I thought you should know, Dr. Patel said. Thank you. How do you feel about it? I thought about that for a long time. How did I feel about Sean's passing? Relief? Satisfaction? Sadness for the friend he used to be? Empty, I said finally. I feel empty. That's normal. When someone who caused you great damage dies, it's common to feel nothing at all. But that wasn't quite right. I didn't feel nothing. I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not happiness, not sadness. Something else. Justice, maybe, or just the natural order of things reasserting itself. Sean had tried to eliminate me, and in the end, life had eliminated him instead. There was a symmetry to that I found oddly comforting. Rachel is still alive, still serving her sentence. She'll be eligible for parole in 15 years, when she's 56 years old. Sometimes I wonder if she still dreams about that night when I opened my eyes and spoke her name. I hope she does. I hope she dreams about it every night for the rest of her life. Because that's the thing about being a ghost, you never really leave. You haunt the people who wronged you forever, living in their memories, their nightmares, their guilty consciences. They thought they could eliminate me and move on with their lives. Instead, they gave me eternal life in their darkest thoughts. And that, more than any prison sentence, is the revenge I'll treasure forever.